Okay, greetings and welcome to another Grenfell MediaWatch update. Today's edition I want to call Iforgotititus. And I want to start with the inquiry. I look around me and you can probably see that we're getting close to summer. And I don't know if you remember, but when the inquiry was launched, one of the things that it stated was that we could expect to see an interim report sometime in spring. Well, spring's here, no report. Now, if you go onto the inquiry website, you'll see that they're talking about it being delayed possibly by engaging inside the Maxwellisation process. I don't know why they name these after bad people, Robert Maxwell. But this is a process where people who are likely to be criticised inside a report of this nature has the opportunity to, I don't know, defend themselves and cook up some quick answers. But anyway, there's been another report that's been published by that wonderful organisation, Inquest, and this one listens to the voices of the families involved. And they've actually outlined a few recommendations which are, on the face of it, very, very sensible. They're calling for better choice of venue, calling for an improvements in the process where they can, or their lawyers can actually investigate those who are given evidence. Because I don't know if you remember about the phase 1 process, but many institutions that got involved all of a sudden had Iforgotititus. And this is where they kept on saying, I don't remember. This sudden bout of amnesia that took place. And Morbic's inquiry panel didn't seem robust enough in actually saying, well, you need to remember, because the families remembered. And it was heartbreaking watching them do so. Now, they're also calling for a joint-up blueprint where local government, central government and emergency services actually have a better, more coordinated response in light of another disaster of this nature. Again, a very sensible response. Perhaps most tragically, and as important, is also a call for better mental health provisions. Now, there's been reports that some 11,000 people in North Kent have been affected by Grenfell, and this has led to bouts of serious depression as they relive the trauma, and also suicides attempted and unfortunately otherwise. Now, there are some other good suggestions, from the need of support for some of the technical jargon that comes up during the process, to specialist interpreters, and the provision of a unique number. What often happens every time Grenfell families, victims, survivors have to interact with the authorities, they had to relive the trauma all over again, and it would be useful for them just to have a unique number so they can actually say, look, you know what, rather than us go through that trauma and relive it again, read up, do your homework. So this report by Inquest, making sure that their voices are not excluded from this process, is very timely, very important. However, tragically, you really don't know if the families are going to get some of this extra support that they're recommending. But at the very least, what should be followed is the publication of this interim report. I mean, even the London Fire Brigade chief is actually saying that, look, right now, you need to make some immediate changes to building regulations, or else this risk of this happening again, it just increases. Anyway, wait to see what response the government and the inquiry will make to these recommendations. I think the families, Grenfell United, went to Downing Street recently, or actually not to Parliament recently, to speak to the Prime Minister. So we'll see what the outcome of that was. And we already know what the local authority is doing. They've employed a new heads of communication, a former Cabinet Office press secretary, to deal with all the media spinning and all the dark arts to make sure that the press goes their way. Kind of like Alistair Campbell, I suppose, what he did for the Labour Party during the dark days, pre-Corbyn era. Okay, so now almost 2 years after the massacre took place, this government, James Brockenshire, I think the Community Secretary, has finally announced a £200 million cladding fund for people living in private accommodation. Now, before you get excited and thinking, oh, the government's just suddenly got a heart, no. This was time to stave off the publication of the public letter, the open letter, I should say, of mayors up and down the country, bishops, academics, and many media personalities, actors, sportsters, who actually wrote complaining about the issue and actually condemning the government on its inaction. So yes, it is a positive move forward, and that change is starting to happen, at least on this level. There are many people saying, of course, that 200 million is really not enough. And there's the recent case of the adoption charity that actually went into liquidation because they couldn't sell their premises to raise the finance to keep their business viable. So it kind of has many different side effects in society, not just on the risk to people's lives, the health, the depression, the stress, the illness, the attempted suicides, but also the destructions of charities. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Now, looking at the rehousing situation, things are slowly but surely improving. Only 18 households out of 201 are still living in temporary accommodation. I think only 2 are actually in hotels, so there is some progress on that level. But also, we're learning simultaneously that there's a family that's actually been put on the council waiting list. Now, I think they turned down a property after they moved into a permanent offer, and the building actually just brought back all the trauma for them. So their punishment is to be put on the council waiting list. I don't quite understand the logic. Anyway, before I close, I want to give you a little food for thought. Now, Paul Bussetti, he is one of those people responsible for the burning effigy, has pleaded not guilty to charges in court. And I think this really offers a great opportunity to see how the police and the CPS are going to respond, how robustly they're going to investigate the situation. Because, let's be honest, if they can't actually prosecute someone who burnt a cardboard effigy, what hope is there of actually catching the real perpetrators? So, I'm going to sign off, as usual, and say may the ancestors continue to guide and protect us. Ashe.